Namaste, my friends. Today I'm going to talk about the path. Where does the path go? What is the goal? And the goal is to reach absolute truth. Okay, and what is absolute truth? Not subjective truth, not objective truth, but absolute truth, right? And I use that word very intentionally, absolute truth. Okay, absolute truth is that reality is. Okay, reality is. That is an absolute truth, you know. Um, and it's more than what we experience reality. That's when it starts getting a little more subjective. We experience reality from the perspective of a human being. An ant is experiencing reality from the perspective of an ant. A sun is experiencing reality from the perspective of the sun. And everything, whatever it is experiencing reality from its own perspective and its own makeup and the way that it is. But outside all these perspectives, outside all these limitations, is a very simple truth that reality is. It doesn't matter that we are human beings, reality is, you know. Um, so this is the absolute truth that is beyond subjectivity. Um, and it's sort of like, well, how do we know we are in one reality? We might be in a simulation. What if this is just a dream? That's just talking about the perspective. It's talking about the experience of reality. Um, but when I say reality is, this is outside of it. Like imagine pre-Big Bang. Matter either didn't exist or all the matter existed in a pinpoint thing that's not even a point. It's tinier than a point. Um, like all the matter just wasn't. Um, Even in that state, that was the state of reality. Like reality is. Even then, even now with matter, energy, dark energy, whatever it is, the fact remains that reality is. And if reality is that even nothing existed, there was no pre Big Bang, there was no post Big Bang, there was just nothing, absolutely nothing, that is what reality is. So irrespective of what is or what isn't, um, in the sense of things being, reality just is. And so when we bring ourselves into the equation, we are human beings in reality, right? So this is it sounds very simple, but this is the whole idea of the spiritual path, is to be a human in reality as it is. And now that sounds a little bit easier than it actually is, because by that we are always humans. There's no way to not be a human being if you're a human being. There's no way for reality to not be reality. But that's where the confusion comes in. That's where the mess comes in, because we are humans and we have understandings. We have created our own version of reality. We've created our own version of reality based upon what we think is right and wrong, what's good and bad, what's valuable and less valuable, important and not important. All these things that we have perceived, what we know, what we don't know, what scares us, what makes us happy. All this reality that we have made, in which we say what reality is, keeps us from just being a human being in reality. We have stories. We have a story in our minds, our fiction of what we are, who we are, what the reality is, what things mean. We have all this story inside of our heads, which leads and directs our lives. This identity, this understanding of the self, and this is what keeps us from being just a human being in reality, because there's so much more that we like just put on top of reality. And so the whole spiritual path is trying to get you, or trying to understand how to come out of your story. How do you come out of your perception of reality? How do you come out of your own way of doing things, and really just try to be with reality as it is. And the simplest thing that that the path does is you just focus on your breath. You focus on your breath. That's all it is. So why that is the truth, right? Because it's not the absolute truth, the fact that you're breathing, because there's only one absolute truth, that reality is. But objectively, the breath is an objective truth. It is a process which happens from the moment you're born and until you die. And it's pretty similar, it's pretty consistent throughout the day. And it never changes. It changes in the sense that if you're working out or you're stressed, you'll like breathe harder, or if you're super relaxed and sleeping, you'll breathe super quietly. But the very nature of it does not change. There is no liking the breath or not liking it. There is no identity. The breath doesn't have an identity that's different from another breath that's like grew up in Asia, or like let's say someone's from Africa, or like wherever you are. The breath is the breath. It doesn't matter what cultural influences or the way that you perceive the world. It's just the breath. It's a pure breath. It is what it is. So when you meditate on the breath, you're meditating on this objective truth that can't be influenced. I mean, again, like I said, it can be influenced by things to change the way that it functions, but not necessarily fundamentally change it. So being with this truth is as close as we as human beings can get to start to experience reality as it is. So getting out of our stories, getting out of our minds is the first step that one must learn to do. And how to get out of it and be with the breath, this objective truth. And then the more you are with this objective truth, the more you begin to see reality for what it is and not reality for how you perceive it inside your story. Right? So the path, and all the paths, all the yogic paths, spiritual paths, paths that try to work with consciousness, this is the goal. The goal is to be with reality as it is, and to be you as you are, not subjectively, not the story that you have in your mind, not the way that you see things, or that you perceive the world, but just as a pure human being, as the most basic fundamental aspect of human being. To just be with reality is the whole goal. um, and that is really important, recognizing what is absolute truth, that reality is, and recognizing that we can, the most that we can be and the littlest we can be is to be human. That is our limits, our limitation. What makes us defined as a human being is the boundaries of what we are. We can only be human. We can only experience reality from the perspective of a human being. And there's a lot of power in that if you know how to be a human being, a pure human being, not invoked, not influenced by anything that you have picked up, that you have collected experientially. And that's just the whole path, that's the whole purpose. And what a beautiful thing it is to be a human being. What an amazing, ecstatic thing it is to be a human being, a perceiver of reality. That's a pretty special thing, to be able to be self-aware, not only of the self, but also of your perception of reality, your link to reality. That's the beauty of humankind, and that's the goal. That's the end goal, and not the end goal, the beginning goal. It's a funny thing because you can't not be human, but at the same time you have to learn to be human. So it's not really like a destination where you like get there and you're done. Like, you are already at the destination. You already are the destination. You just have to learn to just be a full human being, if that makes sense. All right, namaste, my friends.